a number of things that I've heard from people in the Pentagon, that the buzzword in the secret of secrets in the Pentagon is the Sumerian gods are returning, and that's what they're referring to as that whole area that Peter's
Wow.
Can you repeat that again, just in case anybody missed it? The buzzword
in the Pentagon, and the military circles that are in the know about the cover-up here, they kind of, in whispered tones, talk about the return of the Sumerian gods. And they're talking about the what we would call aliens or fallen angels returning into the Middle East, into Old Sumer area.
The Anunnaki.
Well, could be.
Greetings, and welcome to my channel. I'm the Anunnaki Theorist. Before I start on this video, I need to reiterate my intro. I need to say that this is not fact, this is not truth. What I'm about to talk about today is my interpretation of things. Not only my interpretation, but some of the others that have studied this particular topic has drawn the same conclusions. So we're kind of in sync, even though it's still not necessarily truth or fact. Okay, so in my last video, I kind of put the cart before the horse, but because of the Halloween holiday, I thought it would be a little bit more appropriate, a little on the scary side, to talk about the Mark of the Beast, which that is a later prophecy. But this is going to be the first of two videos that I am going to do this month that is going to talk about prophecy. Now, the prophecies that I'm going to use are going to be those in the book of Revelation in the Christian Bible. Now, when it comes to the book of Revelation, I'm not going to start at the beginning and go through. A lot of biblical scholars, a lot of those experts, especially in mainstream academia, they've already said that essentially the first part of the book of Revelation has already taken place. And those that have read the book of Revelation, that talks about the seven seals and the four horsemen and things like that. These are various allegories and analogies and metaphors and things like that for these circumstances in the world which have already taken place. Now, what I'm going to get into today is the seven trumpets. Now, I don't understand why they have to have so many signposts, because that's what the seven trumpets are. The first thing that we have to understand is this is not a sound. I've talked to a lot of people saying that, the seven trumpets have already been sounded. And the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, well, I didn't hear a sound. No, these aren't sounds. The trumpet means to announce. These are essentially just signposts. But again, I don't understand why they have to have so many. If we're heading towards the end of days, which is just an end of an age, it's not the end of the world. The earth has been here for billions of years. It's going to be here for a few more billion at least. Okay, so we're not worried about that. The end of an age, hey, that's fine. But these things, that I'm going to talk about today, you have so many of them, and why couldn't they just have like one or maybe even two before, hey, here is the final, here is the end of days. But that's not what it is. They've got quite a few. The only thing I could think of is it's showing an escalation. It's showing that things are just going to get progressively worse and worse and worse until finally, we're at a point where it's like, okay, somebody save us, somebody do something. And then, here we have the end of days, the big battle, the judgment, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Things like that. It's the only thing I can think of, the reason why they'd have this many freaking signposts. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, I'm going to use the Septuagint because this is closest to the original writings. This is supposed to be, what was actually written, and some say that, it was written by John, and some say no, it was somebody that was written by somebody else that said that he was John, whatever. It's irrelevant. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. It's, the Revelation 8:6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And a third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Okay, so what is this? Well, when I was growing up, I had never even heard of a wildfire. Never. It wasn't in the news. There was nothing being talked about. I mean, yes, I'm quite sure that because of the way California is, they have problems getting water, and it's usually fairly dry, and you got idiots that drive around throwing their cigarette butts out in the middle of the forest, and so you get your fires. But it was never a big deal, or at least not around here. It wasn't something that was going to be reported. But as I got into my late teens, I started hearing about it. I started hearing about it that, California is on fire, and the media, they always sensationalized it. Made it a big deal. They were showing aerial footage and showing all the trees burning up, and people that had houses that were, they like to, have houses out in the woods and everything like that. And their houses were on fire, and all the trees were burning up, and all the green grass was burning up. And okay, so that's California. But as I got older, we started hearing about wildfires in places that you wouldn't think that there would be wildfires. Now, I'm going to use some YouTube videos. I'm not endorsing the channel's creators. There's probably better videos out there. These are just ones that they actually do show some of the things that I'm talking about here. And the first one I'm going to come to is this one. This one's nice because it is a NASA image, and of course it says NASA via the New York Times. This is showing all of the wildfires that have been detected all over the world. All over the world. The only places that aren't having wildfires are those places that don't have any fuel. And that's, the Arctic Circle, the Antarctic, out in the middle of the desert, things like that. But if it's got trees, or even large fields, things like that, yeah, we're getting wildfires. Now, some are saying that the reason why this is happening is because of, global warming or climate change or whatever you want to call it. Yes and no. It is happening because of climate change, but not because of what man is doing. I mean, seriously, I've talked with some old timers that remember, basically the start of, well, I won't say the start of, but, middle of and end of the Industrial Revolution time, when people were burning things, they were burning coal to keep warm, for the power plants, for the factories, and they were saying that, it was so bad that the snow, come winter, was coming down black. Okay? That's a really bad thing when it comes to we're doing damage to the planet, we're doing damage to the atmosphere. When you're pumping out that much pollution, that your snow is actually coming down black. And then, has anybody ever heard of acid rain? You don't hear about it too much anymore. But when we were pumping pollutions, when they didn't have the various safeguards and everything on the smokestacks of the factories, all this noxious, bad pollution, fumes, and things like that were going up into the atmosphere, and it was causing the rain, the clouds to become sour, essentially, and what would come down would be acid. I mean, it was a really, really diluted acid, but it would still burn, if you got it on your skin. But you don't hear about that so much anymore because we have safeguards in place. So the whole idea of we are affecting climate change very, very, very minutely. The Earth goes through cycles, and this just happens to be one of those cycles. But that's the reason why we're getting, these drought conditions, these areas where they're just not getting enough water. You've got a lot of fuel, and you get your wildfires. So that's the first trumpet. Now, the next trumpets are out of order, and this is one of those times when John thinks that an effect is because of a cause that has absolutely nothing to do with it. Okay? So, we get into Revelation 8:8, and it says, "And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed." Wait, so what is this? When it says, "As it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea," honestly, to me, in my mind, using modern day eyes, this would sound like a volcano. Now, we have had some island chain type volcanoes. In fact, I think it was a couple of years ago, we actually had the big volcano in Hawaii that erupted. Now, it didn't erupt explosively. It just oozed lava everywhere. But I mean, it did some serious damage to the main island of Hawaii. I mean, you got lava pouring out on all the roads and everything. Imagine the kind of cleanup that's going to be. But I don't think that's what John's seen. What I think John's seen was this. Now remember, I said things are taken out of order. This was in 2011. And when I get into the third trumpet, you'll understand what I mean, that it was taken out of order. The third and the fourth trumpet. But when the 9.0 earthquake happened in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it caused a huge tsunami, nice big tidal wave crashed into the Fukushima power plant. Now, to an observer, this could look like, and of course, it probably started fires and did some damage and whatnot to the power plant itself. To an observer, a primitive observer, this could technically look like a mountain that was burning, that was falling into the sea. Again, this is my interpretation, and a few others, and this is just what it sounds like. So, and again, I'm not gonna play the footage because of copyright issues and because I'm not trying to endorse content creators or anything like that. But yeah, this is the footage that actually shows this massive tidal wave crashing into the Fukushima power plant. Now, what had happened is you had one, possibly two reactors that went critical. They took so much damage that they went critical. And what they've been doing, and I'm not sure, I think they're probably still doing it today, is they are pumping tens of thousands of gallons of ocean water into the core in order to keep it cool so that it doesn't melt down. Now, once that water reaches a certain temperature where it's no longer going to act as a coolant, they are pumping it right back out into the ocean. The Pacific Ocean is dying. There isn't a place in the ocean right now, in the Pacific Ocean, that isn't irradiated. This video is showing, they're basically having an interview with a sailor, someone who is used to sailing the Pacific Ocean, been doing so all of his life. And he said it used to be that, you could go anywhere in the ocean and you would see whales and you'd see sea life and you would see birds and all these things. And he's like, now it's dead. It's calm. There are no animals. He said, he's seen one whale that was floundering, looked as if it was sick and it was having trouble breathing. Now it says that a third of the waters are have become this way. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me get into here. Okay, and the third, and the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of the waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Okay. This is where, the way that I see it, John seen a cause, and he thought that, or he seen an effect, and he thought it was this cause. Okay, so we know that the Pacific Ocean is irradiated, and like I said, this particular thing is taken. This is actually before the event. The Fukushima disaster. Okay, this is actually this. Now, wormwood. Why is it called wormwood? Well, those of us that like our alcohol to be a tad on the exotic side, we drink absinthe. Now, absinthe is a grain alcohol, and it is instilled with wormwood. Wormwood is a poisonous plant, but in small amounts, it has hallucinogenic qualities. So, not only are you getting drunk, you're getting this little bit of a trip when you drink absinthe. But the other thing that the wormwood does to the absinthe is it changes it to its signature color, which is green. Okay, so what this is, this video, this is a newscast out of Needles, California, and this is back in 2008. Now, not many people have ever heard this. Those in the UFO community, yeah, they may have, but even some of them have never heard of this. Okay, so basically what this is there was few eyewitness accounts saying that this thing that was burning the color turquoise. Now, not green, turquoise. Turquoise is blue-green. But this thing burning turquoise came streaking out of the sky. And of course, a lot of people thought it was a meteor. But in the middle of its descent, it slowed down, as if under some kind of control, and it was actually trying to slow its descent. And then after a little while, it sped back up, and then it supposedly crashed. But according to the eyewitness accounts, there was no sound, there was no explosion, there was nothing that is indicative of an impact. So, this thing was tracked. Because 17 minutes later, after the supposed impact, 5 helicopters were seen racing to the impact site. 4 of them were Black Hawk helicopters, and 1 was a Crane helicopter. So they were already tracking this thing. Whatever government organization or military organization or whatever, they already knew this thing was coming down. So, space debris, satellite, something that, they knew was going to fall down. But why did it burn turquoise? Because the one thing that we know when it comes to meteorites, when they fall, the color that they burn is based upon the composition of the meteorite, what it's made of. Now, if we were to say that something was coming down green, it was burning green, then there's two things that it could have been. It could have been copper, or it could have been chromium. But this thing came down turquoise, which is a blue-green. And I'm not exactly sure what composition that would be. But back to the helicopters. A little while later, they were seen racing away from the impact site. And the crane helicopter was carrying the object, which the eyewitness said looked oblong, and it was still glowing. Okay, one would think that, if this was, fire, if it was hot, something like that, they wouldn't even be able to get the straps and the harnesses and everything like that the crane uses in order to pick something up around the object. It would be too hot. It'd melt right through them. Somehow they picked this thing up and it was still glowing. So was this wormwood? Again, this is an interpretation. And this sounds like what wormwood would have been. But again, this was in 2008. And then the Fukushima disaster happened in 2011. Now, according to, if you look up the world ocean, because that's what it is. The oceans are all connected. There's no land masses or anything like that breaking them up. They're all one great big ocean. And if you look up the percentage, the Pacific Ocean is almost exactly 1/3 of the world ocean. And it says, and the third part of the waters became wormwood. Third part of the waters, a third part of the world ocean. Now, why did he say bitter? This is the one thing that, I kind of struggled with, because, honestly, if he was shown, or if he tasted the water in his vision, or if he was told, he would have known what poison was. He would have known what salt was. Radiation, though, that concept was not in their vocabulary at that point in time. There was no idea, nobody understood the idea of radiation. So instead, he used the word bitter. Okay, so we get into the fourth trumpet, and it says, and the fourth angel sounded, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. What is that? And again, this is where I'm saying that, things are out of order. And all of us that, have done research and we've looked into the interpretation of Revelation through modern day eyes, and the only thing that we found is this. And this happened in 2010. Now, I'm hoping that people remember what this thing was, because it was a big deal. It was causing flights to be grounded and everything. You had this huge freaking ash cloud coming from this massive volcano. It wasn't a super volcano. It'd be different if it was a super volcano, but it was a big volcano, and it unleashed large amounts of debris up into the atmosphere, and it caused the sky to be darkened, to be a third of the sky to be darkened. No sun, no stars, no moon. And it, day and night, you had this huge ash cloud. But again, This happened before the Fukushima disaster. So this is the reason why I said, these particular trumpets, they are out of order with this interpretation. Now, if this is correct, if we are truly in the tribulation, and which, by the way, I need to talk about that a little bit. Back in 2017, here in the United States, we had a celestial event that was cool, and it is fairly rare. An eclipse in itself is not a rarity, but a total eclipse is a rarity. And I think the point of totality was somewhere in Kentucky, to where you could see the full sun being covered by the moon, and all you had was a little itty bitty little ring around the moon. It even showed that it was the sun. But it was at that point is when we started the tribulation. What is the tribulation? The tribulation is just a time of troubles. I mean, seriously, folks, look at the world today. Are we not in trouble? I mean, whether it's wars and rumors of wars. Yes, I'm quoting a thing from the SEALs. But not only that, you've got gender identity issues, you've got racial equality issues, you've got countries that are tired of their regimes and they're rising up and they're pulling down the governments. You got all these things going on. And yes, we have had that for thousands of years. It's always that way. But everything is just kind of coming together all at once. Not only do you have these various trumpets that are going on, but then you've also got all these troubles in the world. So I just see it as too much of a coincidence that all these things are coming together that are prophesied here in the book of Revelation. Alright, speaking of the book of Revelation, let's go ahead and get back into it. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Okay, that's a lot. So what is this? Well, this is, again, we got a situation where things are out of order. Where you have, we technically had the locusts first. The locusts was ISIS. And you know how it says that, it's not supposed, they're not supposed to kill, they're supposed to torment. Okay? Well, we know ISIS killed. And they did so flamboyantly and extravagantly and on, TV, the whole idea of the beheadings. But they are considered terrorists. And terrorists torment. Yes, killing is something that they do. It does happen. But their primary goal is to instill terror, to torment the people. And of course, this is so that, the people will, talk to their governments and try to get things to change. They didn't believe in capitalism. There was a lot of things that they wanted the world to do, and they were going to do these terrorists acts in order to be able to get the world to change. Of course, that's not going to happen. It never does. But the locusts, you don't hear about ISIS anymore. And the reason why is because the fifth angel sounded, and a star fell from heaven onto the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. When we finally snuffed out ISIS, one of the first things that we did is we basically corralled them into their headquarters. This bunker, this massive underground complex. Because that's what, after it was all cleared out and everything, they did the investigation. They found out that it was huge underground. Dug out and cave systems and things like this. This was the bottomless pit. And so what was the star that fell? The star that fell was this. Now, when this happened, I watched it. You can watch, this video right here actually shows it. But that's the star that fell. And that is the Moab. Affectionately called the mother of all bombs. This is the largest non-nuclear bomb that the United States has in its arsenal. Bunker buster. And that's what it did. It broke open their bottomless pit, their underground base, the abyss. And then, of course, smoke came out, and there was a lot of smoke because this was a huge freaking bomb. But now, like I said, they kind of put the cart before the horse on this one, because the locusts didn't pour out because the bottomless pit was open. The locusts were inside hiding. But the locusts, that was ISIS. Now, one of the things that's interesting, and this is another one of those examples of where shoot, I missed it. I'm sorry. I really thought I had all this prepared properly. Give me a moment. Okay. So, those that know the quatrains of Nostradamus, it is believed that, he predicted quite a few things that have already come to pass. And one of the things that he supposedly predicted was the rise of Hitler. But he didn't say Hitler. He said Hister. Now, the one thing I would really love to talk with someone who does remote viewing or has visions or whatever, and I'd like to know, how do you hear things? When you hear things in your vision, is it distorted? Do you actually hear things the way that they're supposed to be? Because that's what we have here, if we look at it through this interpretation. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Okay, the key here is Abaddon. Is that what John heard? Did John actually hear Abaddon? Or did he hear al-Baghdadi? Abaddon, al-Baghdadi? Because this was the king of the locusts. And of course, according to this report, believed to be dead. And after this, we no longer have ISIS. And that's one of the things that it said in there. It said that they will torment them for 5 months. The number of the actual number of months. I'm not exactly sure how the biblical scholars, explain that. What I look at it as is it's for a time. They don't, perpetually torment people. It's just for a time is when they will be around. And that's the way it was. We heard ISIS, 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 and now it's like, where's ISIS? Okay. So they tormented people for 5 months for a small time. Alright, so the next thing that we get into when we get into this, and this again is kind of taken out of out of order, because we come back in here, and it talks about the various armies. And then we get in here and it says, the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loosed the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay a third part of men. Okay. Now, when we get into this, again, like I said, these things are taken out of order. And it says, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth, and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire, and smoke, and brimstone. Okay, so first of all, we got to talk about the angels that were at the river Euphrates. Now we get later into the prophecies, and then we also get into the prophecies in the Quran, which talks about that the Tigris and the Euphrates will dry up in order to make way for kings from the east to come and invade. Okay, the Tigris and the Euphrates are both drying up, at least their tributaries. And it's not because of something that Earth is doing. It's because something that man is doing. You get more and more people into an area. And because the world runs on energy, the more people you have, the more energy you need. So what's happening is the people in the Middle East are damming up the Tigris and the Euphrates in different areas to create hydroelectric dams so that they have power for the people. And what this is doing is it's causing the tributaries that are usually fed by these mighty rivers to dry up, and thus causing the farmland to become dry. I mean, we're getting serious drought conditions because, for one, they don't get much rain to begin with. So all their water comes from these 2 big rivers. And since they're being dammed up, they're not feeding their tributaries. And this is one of those troubles. But now, we go back into where it talks about these armies. And one of the things that kind of jumped out at me, I've studied a lot, and one of the things that I actually liked getting into was like the Middle Ages and the whole idea of knights and things like that. And when you're on a battlefield and you're wearing a full suit of armor and your face is covered, how do you know who's friend from foe? Well, they would wear their coat of arms, either on a tabard that would be over their breastplate, or on their breastplate it would be painted their colors or whatever. And so that's what we're seeing here. And having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and of brimstone. Okay, what are these? Fire is red, jacinth is blue, and brimstone, which is another word for sulfur, is yellow. So that would show the colors of this army, the nation that they belong to. So what is this? Anybody remember the Venezuelan crisis? They got tired of their government, and the citizens, they rose up. And it says that they use fire, smoke, and sulfur. Well, it had been found out that China was supplying the citizens of Venezuela with fire bombs, smoke bombs, and tear gas. Now I want you to look at this guy standing right here in the front of this video. To a primitive individual, would that almost look like the head of a horse? Now, aside from that, and I've watched several videos of the crisis, some of the individuals have actually taken their gas masks and they put on material and things like that to make it look almost like an animal head. And this video doesn't show it, but there are videos out there, and they're, there's a serious disclaimer about them, because it shows these Venezuelan citizens actually setting policemen on fire. And they use smoke bombs, and they use tear gas. What is one of the chief components of tear gas? Sulfur. Brimstone. Now look at their flag. Now this is the only thing that confuses me, is why this was reversed. Because their flag is actually yellow, blue, and red. So why did they see it reversed? There are other flags out there. There are other nations out there that use those same colors, and even one that actually uses it to where it's red, blue, and yellow, but nothing's going on there. But with this, you have the yellow, blue, and red, which I don't know if he's seen it backward, or if, because like in Hebrew, to where, you don't read left to right, you actually read right to left. Is that how he was seeing it? I mean, that is a possibility. But this would be that particular trumpet, along with like I said, the river Euphrates drying up. Third part of the men were killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. Again, this is that that Venezuelan crisis. Now, of course, here he goes again with the whole idea of, oh, well, because of this Venezuelan crisis, and the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and wood. Neither, okay, this really had nothing to do with it. I don't understand why he would have put this in there. Again, unless of course it's part of that propaganda. Because remember, not only is it a book of prophecy, it's a book of propaganda. So the idea of, okay, so you've got these armies, and they're rising up, and blah blah blah, and this is the reason why. It's because people aren't repenting. Again, propaganda. All right, we're almost done. This is the seventh trumpet. Now, the seventh trumpet, a lot of biblical scholars says it's supposed to be the return of the Ark of the Covenant. Because it says, "And the temples of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the Ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail." As far as we know, nobody has found the Ark of the Covenant. It's believed that it's in a little chapel in Ethiopia. Some people say it's still under Jerusalem. Nobody actually knows. But what we do have, and of course, this is kind of one of those things. It's almost like a conspiracy theory. It's like, where did this whole idea come from? Well, this is in the Quran, where it talks that Gabriel gave Muhammad a great weapon. Now, what this video talks about is that in Mecca, they were making preparations. They were excavating an area so that they could build another mosque. And they had a massive crane there and everything. And when they dug down so far, they found a box. Now, supposedly, when they found this box, a bolt of lightning shot out of the box. It didn't come down from the sky. It actually originated from the box and shot up. It caused an earthquake. It caused this crane to collapse, and it killed about 100 people. Now, supposedly, this box is called the Ark of Gabriel. And like I said, this was in the Quran, and it was said that there is a priest or a bishop in Russia, and this was of the Catholic Orthodox Church, that had the writings that told how to deal with this box. And so they had to get a hold of him, and he gave them the information, and they knew what they were supposed to do, and they moved this box, and supposedly this box was put on a Russian ship, and this Russian ship took the box to Antarctica. And the reason why they said they were taking it to Antarctica is because it was, an area that was, no people were around, so it wasn't going to be able to hurt anyone accidentally. Well, I believe that the stronghold of Marduk, the Hasatan, is in Antarctica. You get into the diary of Admiral Richard Byrd, and he talks about, now this is the individual that gets into that gives us the whole hollow earth theory. But it gets into the idea that, he is taken to this place which he swore up and down was a hollow earth, and he meets with a man that calls himself the King of the Earth. This is Marduk. And with him were some other individuals, and these became known as the Guardians of the Earth. This would be the other Igigi. These would be their families, the offspring of the Igigi, and so on and so forth. Okay, they're staying in Antarctica. Maybe. Again, it's not truth, it's not fact. We don't know. But the Ark of Gabriel is what I believe is what the seventh trumpet is talking about. It's not the Ark of the Covenant that was found. It was the actual Ark of Gabriel. These things have already come to pass if we look at it with this interpretation and with modern day eyes. Is it the truth? Again, as I stated at the beginning, this isn't truth, this isn't fact, this is an interpretation. And it's my interpretation. You take it with, however you want to see it. Some people would say, oh, no, this isn't happening yet. Even though, we've got all this, and it'd be too much of a coincidence. But this is the end of part 1. I will put out the part 2 at the end of the month. I'm the Anunnaki Theorist. Enjoy.